I'm Lauren. Welcome to Publish It Group Talks. The aim of this channel is to create a platform that lives up to a motto of Arrive Smart, Leave Smarter. We're here to educate, inform and inspire our audience. The inspiration from the show for new listeners and listeners who have been following us comes from the amazing conversations I've had with those in my network and creatives and individuals that I meet over time, and the knowledge that they have to share. And they've been so kind enough to want to be part of this collaboration, to actually come and give of their time and share this. Today's studio guest is Warrick Guest. We had him on before, and Warrick is here to talk more about brand and brand strategy. Welcome, Warrick.
Great, thank you to you.
It's nice to have you back. We first would like to introduce Warrick for new listeners who haven't listened to the previous show. Warrick is an award-winning creative director. He has a very strong background in brand identity design and brand strategy. In fact, he has 20 years of experience and success. During his career, Warrick's been responsible for creating very innovative brand identities, developing intelligent marketing, as well as below-the-line advertising campaigns, establishing creative timeframes, and building efficient high-level teams and pitching complete branding concepts to various top-tier clients across Africa, with a focus on Nigeria, Kenya, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. Warrick, that's a very impressive CV, and for listeners who have had the pleasure of hearing what you have to say, there's no doubt, and I also feel from myself, that you have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and I'm actually very honored that you're giving of your time to be here to help create this.
No, it's great to be part of this. I think it's a great opportunity to collaborate and to give of our time to kind of not necessarily educate, but to also inspire people as well at the end of the day. I mean, I wish when I was at varsity there was something like this around, that I could actually understand what's actually happening in the market. I mean, you go into industry and you go and you go and study and you're not really told what it's about, and then you get into the industry and everyone gets one hell of a fright. Yeah. And kind of goes, damn, is this what I've actually signed up for? But it needn't be like that. So if you've got the right people behind you, the right inspiration, the right mentorship, I think it really helps. And
the mentorship, as you're saying, that's actually a key, because I think it's hard for an individual to find mentors. I never had a mentor, and I always aspired to wanting to have a mentor, and thinks that, you know, I would love to have someone who could guide me and inspire me, and I never found really that person. And then when I was thinking about the show, one of the things that came to me was that the show could become in itself a mentoring program where an individual can listen to it but get multiple skills, even if they were not necessarily a creative in a sense. That it can really talk to a larger audience.
No, I agree. I mean, I also, when you talk about mentors, I mean, I've never really had a mentor, because I don't think I look up to one person. I look at different traits from different people, and I kind of go, well, I like where this is heading, I'll take that and I'll bank that, or I'll bank it from this person, or whatever it may be. So I don't have a mentor as such, but I have a value sort of chain built from ideas from different mentors that I want to live by, in a way.
You know, it's interesting. Mentors are often, you could say, they're actually supposed to be the lecturers at the institutions where you study, and they're supposed to be the ones who inspire that in you.
Yeah, and unfortunately now I think mentors now is more celebrities, which is pretty sad, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
I was looking at a YouTube channel the other day at a friend's house, where it's these bunch of kids who have become YouTube stars, driving Bugattis, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell you do this, because you've got viewership and people are looking at this channel of all these guys doing things, but they're actually not doing anything, or offering anything, but they are wealthy beyond their means. Really.
And they're a brand, actually.
They are a brand.
And people are looking at that brand, they're aspiring to that brand.
And their music's terrible. It's a shocker, but yet they managed to do it. So I think a mentorship is quite an interesting thing. I think I looked up to more people within varsity than anyone else. Or for me, I looked at people within my industry as mentors, as I kind of went along with it. I aspired to be, not like, but I aspired to be at that level.
Absolutely, because otherwise you've got nothing to work towards.
Yeah.
And sometimes that when we're in those positions, we forget that we're influencing others around us. So what we say and what we do and how we present ourselves as a brand, as an individual, because we all are individual brands to ourselves.
That's it. And like I say, I will never, like I don't really have a mentor as such, but I can learn from anyone. I mean, I can learn from a man on the street. I mean, I could go out there and ask someone, say, you know, what is a brand to you? And kind of take that in and go, well, if that's how they're seeing brand, maybe we're doing things slightly differently or slightly wrong. You know, we kind of dictating to the masses and they're following what we do, and that's how they interact with brands, but maybe we're not listening to people enough to understand what we can do differently.
What do you think is the personality of a brand?
Personality is quite an interesting one. Every brand's going to have a different personality. Take someone like Kalula, for instance. It's a fun brand, it's vibey, it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's quite a cheeky brand. I mean, you get on that flight and you hear what the air hostesses say, you know, where they explain the sort of procedure, you know, if you're going to be in a crash, you know, adopt the brace position and kiss your ass goodbye. You know what I mean? That's how they talk, because it's a bit of a fun brand. It's tongue-in-cheek. Nando's a similar kind of thing. A bit more of a, they kind of walk that tightrope of getting into crap a lot of the time, but at the end of the day, they're a bit of a fun kind of brand. So each brand's going to have a different tone of voice or different personality. So when we build brands, I look at brands, I say, now I'm building a house of brands, for instance. Take someone from a Unilever stable. You've got all these different brands. You've got Gillette, and you've got all the different brands that kind of play in there. Each one is a brand in themselves, but at the end of the day, they're a family. They're part of this overarching family. So it's like you've got your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad. You each got your own personality. Each brand has their own personality as well. And that also goes along with the brand who's got a monolithic brand approach, which is like, if I say monolithic, I'm saying someone like an F&B. It's one brand, it's one sort of brand going through with all the different offerings. They don't have separate brands underneath for each service offering. But each market has got a different personality and different way they kind of talk to their markets as well. Yes, you'd have your brand personality, which is your overarching one, but there's a certain nuance that comes through to the fore for each kind of brand. Like for wealth, it's a bit more astute, it's a bit more confident in its approach, whereas personal is a bit more conversational, more like a best friend.
So it's establishing that brand personality that's important, because that also comes into the next question, is that what does brand positioning mean? Because I would imagine that the personality of the brand would mean that it would have to be positioned specifically to speak to that audience in its personality.
Yes. So a brand positioning is how you're going to position your brand within a market or within a market space. So take a consulting brand, for instance, and each brand has got a different positioning on how they want to go to market. So they're very sort of clinical brands, very cold in their consulting space. But what is that positioning that's going to differentiate yourself and make you a bit more sort of human in a way? Because brands would come to market in the consultant space, and people would hear the word consultant, they'll go, well, a lot of money, there's a briefcase involved, they come, they do, and they go. But there's no partnership. So maybe the brand positioning partnership for a consultant space or a brand positioning is about partnerships or building lasting partnerships. That is their reason for believing, and that is what the brand stands for. So if we had to build something on building lasting partnerships, that positioning becomes a creative platform for us to execute creatively, as well as an internal mantra or an internal value or an internal reason for being for that brand. So everyone within that business realizes that they're building lasting relationships, but that could also be a bit of a tagline that goes externally as well. I think gone are the days of let's have a brand positioning. From a brand positioning, we build a big creative idea which goes to your comm space. We build another creative idea which is internal. We build another one which goes into your tagline. I think now we've had to realize that we see brands day in and day out. We actually need to make sure that that brand positioning, which gives us our creative platform, is simple to execute on and something simple to believe in. So I think your positioning, whatever your positioning is going to be, needs to be something that the layman on the street gets as well. I found we had built this beautiful brand positioning for a client. It sounds great on paper, but it doesn't give us the platform to execute creatively. So that's again, when I said previously in the last episode, I said you need strategy, you need creative to actually build the creative platform together with your brand positioning, because there's going to be a creative nuance that comes in there, there's going to be a strategic nuance. So you can't just have strategy dictating what your platform really is going to be or your brand positioning.
Then what is brand architecture? How does that fit into it?
So brand architecture plays along your services or your offerings, or to give you an idea, did a brand a few years ago, they've got their holding company at the top, which is called InterSwitch, massive tech brand up in Nigeria. Below that, they've got hero products as well, but they've also got services that plug under the mother brand, the InterSwitch brand. So they've got these two hero products, which have their own personalities, which play in. But then below the normal mother brand, they've got a consultant level. They might have something to do with tech, fintech, with management, which are services in their sort of sector. But they have these two hero brands which play separately. So what we would do, we'd look at the entire offering for a business, whatever the business may be. Say, here's my holding company at the top. Do I need to go for different brand architecture, being a monolithic approach? Monolithic is one brand, one voice, two market. Are we a house of brands? Do we have other brands that sort of play in? Or are we a modified monolithic, which is almost a combination of a house of brands versus a monolithic brand? So I might have my monolithic approach, which goes to market, or I've got other sort of hero brands which go to market as well separately. And a lot of the time you'll find those brands also compete with each other, which is quite an interesting way of doing this. And you need to work out, well, is it healthy competition, or do we need to collapse one from here, bring it in under another offering as such? So it just depends on how businesses want to go to market. I find a lot of brands over time, they've built this beautiful brand that goes to market, and that's how they started. It becomes an organic kind of growth. Different products and services come, and they start building brands for those products and services. So at the end of the day, they're fragmenting their top main brand that they're working with. So what we do need to do is we need to have a look at that bottom line of brands that we have got, of our offering. Are they services? Are they standalone brands? Is there enough equity in one service to become a standalone brand or a breakaway brand? Or do we just go into a monolithic approach where it's one brand, one voice through to market?
Would you consider, and this is a personal question, do you consider yourself a creative individual?
I'd say yes, based on what I do. At the end of the day, we're selling ideas. We're selling creativity. I think there's also a certain level of strategic intent that needs to be behind this.
Because that's where I was going with that.
I think the challenge is, and you'll find this in most agencies, you've got your strategists and you've got your creatives. Creatives were those funny kids at school who wore black. They were odd, they were kind of weird, and then you've got your intelligent guys who were who became the strategists.
Yes.
What I've noticed over time is a bit of an interesting kind of hybrid that's happening, and I think this is where the game is going to change, is that you can't just have someone who's a creative and someone who's a strategist. You need a creative strategist and a strategic creative at the same time. And that's where this kind of marriage sort of comes in, where I think it's easier to work with one and the other. So I've seen with creatives, you brief them on a job. They haven't been through the whole process yet. Now you've got to brief a creative. They don't understand the strategy, and if they don't understand the strategy, they can't execute the creative at the end of the day. And I've seen this over the years where you'll have, and it's funny enough, it's happened in a lot of agencies I've worked with, where someone has come in originally as a strategist and then moved into creative. And people go, but how can that happen? But this person who moved into creative was a creative person at school, but they studied strategy out of school, so they still understand creativity. And that person, I think, has got one up on someone who just comes in as a creative level.
Absolutely.
I've also seen guys start in at a creative level, move through to copywriting, move through to strategy, which is quite interesting. And people go, well, that's kind of weird. Why would you go from something where you're doing cool pictures, drawings, creative work, into someone which is strategic, or something which is a copy-driven kind of business or model? But to me, they all work one and the same. When you're talking personality earlier, that comes down to the copywriting space as well. So you'll see you've got your copywriter or your copy that goes to market, together with the photography and the brand assets in the brand. They all need to have one voice, but they need to complement each other. So I think there's a beauty in the fact that people do bounce around from one part to the next part within an agency, from strategy to creative, through to copywriting, through to art direction. I think gone are the days of being sort of segmented and compartmentalized into boxes. You need to have someone who can understand all aspects. I'm not a copywriter, but I know when copy's working.
Yeah, you can see it.
I can see when it's going to work with the brand we're trying to create and put out to market. I'm not a photographer, but I understand photographic style. And it's a bit like baking a cake. You kind of look at different sort of parts of the business, and I go, well, this is the brand, this is the photographic style that goes with it, this is the copy that goes with it. And when you actually build that up, how does that actually work? Is it actually working? Is it actually hitting our end goal? How we actually want to take a brand to market?
Warrick, what 5 tips do you feel that every designer who's involved with creating a corporate identity, either for their own business or on behalf of a client, should adhere to and consider when putting an identity together?
I think it's difficult to give sort of just tips to kind of go, more say guidelines for instance, because every designer works quite differently. So for me personally, and it used to irritate a lot of people, I hardly draw. I haven't got time to draw because, and I think also because the world's moved so fast. People don't have time to just sketch things and kind of, cool, this works, this doesn't work, and then kind of 2 weeks later get to where you are. I've had to learn to do things very quickly, get onto a computer quite quickly, whereas I know a lot of people draw. A lot of people now, also with technology, they plug in their Wacom tablet in and they can actually draw and they can actually do something quite cool. So I think to give tips is quite a challenge, but what I would say is when you're building a brand, I would start looking at competitors first. You have to look at your competitors first. You've got to understand who your competitors are. You've got to look at what's going to differentiate you. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Even if you're doing it yourself, I mean, you don't need to do this overly massive kind of strategic sort of build for your business. You can look and go, well, right, so this is my competitor set. These are the colors my competitors are using. This is a gap in the market where I can play in terms of color, which is going to differentiate me. I can build a strategy based on that, which is my reason for believing. Why have I started my business? What am I trying to achieve as my end game? And then from there, I start building up my assets from there. And that's kind of how I would take a basic approach. But you've got to do that informed phase. Yes, it can be done where build a brand without strategy. I mean, we've all done it. We've all worked on designs. It can be done, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just depends on how you actually want to build it. But again, if you're doing it for yourself, a lot of it comes down to budget as well. And a lot of it comes down to time. So us, in building our own business brand, we've taken our entire approach and we've actually done that. We've had to do it because if we're going to not dictate, if we're going to tell our clients how to actually do their approach with their brand, how to actually go to market, how to build their brand, we need to live it internally as well. So I firmly believe you've got to live things internally before you can deliver on it externally. But look at your market, understand your competitors, understand who's doing what in the market. Look at a reason for differentiation before you go to market. And then build your brand assets on that and give yourself guidelines to work with. You've got to make sure you've got this constant voice to your customers to give them a bit of comfort as well. If they see that this brand is changing all the time, they're not going to understand. So you need to actually make sure you've got this constant voice that goes to market when you're actually dealing with your customers. Constant look and feel. But each business is different. If you more B2B or more B2C, how would you actually go to market with that? So business to business is generally a lot more corporate, a lot more sort of stayed in their ways, a lot more structured. Whereas B2C has become a bit more playful and a bit more flexible in terms of how that brand goes to market.
At what point would you work with a patent attorney or patent attorneys with clients? Do brand strategists and companies have patent attorneys that they work with clients and vice versa? How does that integration work?
I would definitely work with one. You have to do it. So first of all, in your strategy process, maybe you've gone into a naming or name gen and you want to actually find a name which is different for your business. So you run through your entire process, flow charts, mind maps, whatever you've done, to actually get to the name that you want to bank on. You can't just say I want one name, because I can tell you now, chances are you're probably not going to get it. So you need to have a couple of names how you can actually go to market. Then you go to your patent attorney or trademark attorney to say, right, these are the names we got, these are the choices we've got from 1 through to 5, what ones can we use and what ones can't we use. Then what happens is your patent attorney will look in that market space and say, right, in your market space, this company's playing too close to this name, so this is a no. This company is playing in this space, so this is a no. But this one kind of works for you, and you need to work out if you can use a name or not. From there, the next level you can go on to is trademarking an icon or a logo as well. It depends on what you want to do. If you've got a graphic device, take someone like Coke. You've got the ribbon device that they use. Yes. That's trademarked separately as well as a brand asset. So now the brand can use that, and they've done that because it's become such a big brand asset, and they needed to do it. It talks into the bottle. If you look at the shape of the bottle, it kind of flows into that ribbon. They've brought that into various little touch points of their brand. That ribbon as well is also in their word mark. You can actually just see how it plays into that. So they realize that's a brand asset that they've trademarked. They've trademarked their name. They've trademarked their color as well. The very first company to trademark color was Cadbury, funny enough. They tried to trademark the color purple and said no brand can use the color purple. And that got thrown out of court. Can't trademark color purple, it's not going to happen. So what they did is they worked with someone like Pantone to come up with a bespoke purple that no other brand can use. So they can't trademark the color purple, but they can have their own color, which is trademarked as their one, the Cadbury purple. So you can build trademarks in different sort of brand assets that you want. People have tried to trademark words and tone of voice, which is also very difficult to do. But there's certain assets you need to realize, what are your biggest brand assets that you want to trademark? If you don't trademark it and someone plays closer to your space, will it destroy your brand or will it build on your brand? I mean, take someone like Coke with the color red. Any brand can have red next to it. It doesn't draw away from what Coke's about. You still understand that Coke is still a red brand. If I look at colors and I say fast foods and I say red, chances are you're going to say KFC or you're going to say McDonald's. So you need to look within your sector and see, do I need to trademark certain brand assets as well before I can actually go to market and protect myself.
That's a lot to consider.
It's a hell of a lot to consider.
And
it's
also,
not just a name.
It also depends on how much your brand is worth, I suppose, as well, because you don't want to go and spend all that money, as we had previously discussed in the other episodes with Mohammed, is that those things cost money, and at what point does a designer or an individual take that decision to make that they go, okay, I've got something that I now need to protect, is it worth protecting?
And even, I mean, there's small little checks that designers can do online themselves. So when I got all my creatives or I'm working on a brand, I'll say, right, I've designed a logo. This is the logo I like, but I need to make sure that I can protect that. Is someone else using it? Is it someone in my sector that's using it? Is it another business in the country that we're going to market in? And it's something as simple as just dropping that image into Google image search. See what pops up. I mean, you've got the tool, it's free, it's available to you. Take a brand, drop it onto that. Take that logo, just that shape. Do it in its absolute sort of like simplicity, black and white. And then Google basically will take that, it will look at, it'll run an algorithm to find shapes similar that are on the Google network or online, and it'll pop up and it'll populate below it and say yes or no. You can do it with names as well.
It's a very good idea, especially the image part of it. I like that, because we all do it with names, and we search names, and we actually don't
URLs you do it for, and it's easy.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a URL I want for my brand, and I actually want to make sure this is unique. It's easy to find that because you can go into one generator and it can generate .com, .co.za, .net, .beer if you want, .design, .brand. You can have a look and see what you actually want to send to market and trademark that name. But the shape is a big thing as well. And a lot of designers don't do this. It's simple to do. And it saves a lot of paperwork at the end of the day and a lot of legal fees.
And you're actually saying shape, and that's interesting because I had a discussion with Mohammed the other day on the phone, and he was saying that something that he would like to discuss is in an episode is about shape trademarks, or there was something to do with that. I'm not familiar with it. It's the first time I'd heard of it.
I think it's not that it's not familiar. I think it's become very new. People start to change things because for you, if I have to ask you what is the biggest brand asset for Coke, you'd probably say it's the color red. That's what you would say it is. or it's a ribbon device. So you've got different brand assets you're looking at. What is the biggest brand asset that is out there? Personally, to me, shape is where it's going. And the reason why I'm going to say that is look at someone like Nike. That logo can be in any color. It can have an image pasted in it. It can be sketched. It can have different iterations, but it's the same shape that kind of is built out there. And I think, especially in sort of evolving markets, it's almost forced us to go there. I mean, you drive around anywhere on the continent, and you'll see through sort of rural areas or townships, people have actually drawn those logos on the side of a building, on a taxi, on whatever it may be, and a bit of corrugated iron, a bit of graffiti. And I've always looked at this and kind of said, well, does this build a brand or does it destroy a brand? And a lot of people say, no, it destroys it. It's not right. It's not right. No, it doesn't.
I think it builds it.
It builds the brand even further. That brand, that culture that has done that is making that brand relevant for their culture. I mean, and you just see how brands have changed over time. And to me, shape is where it's heading. I think we need to actually start protecting shapes more than anything else. Yes, you can protect your logo, which is your logo, or whatever it may be, but are there other brand assets, other shapes that are going into it, like Nike with the Nike swoosh? To me, that's the shape that needs to be protected. The name it's the apple. But apple's an easy one for a lot of people because it's an apple. It's a literal logo. Apple's a literal logo. Shell is. Target is. Those are literal logos. So you don't even need to have the name there, but you know what the brand is. Whereas someone like Nike, looking at that brand and the word Nike, there was no massive correlation to word mark versus icon for the consumer. But it's become so big, and now you can remove that name and people go, that's Nike. You can see 3 stripes, it's Adidas. You kind of understand what these brands are about, and I think it's because those brands have become culturally relevant over time. People have started to play with those brands over time, do different iterations of those logos in rural areas, whatever it may be. Some people even tattoo it on them, you know, whatever they want to do, but it doesn't destroy a brand. A lot of people probably argue that it will, but it won't destroy a brand. To me, it'll build the brand even further. So to me, I think we need to start looking at shape. It's a massive one we need to look into.
And do you think that brand should allow itself to laugh at itself? Because you get very strict corporates who are like, oh no, that will make our brand, that will bastardize the brand. We can't do that because people will laugh at us.
Yeah.
And you think, well, maybe you need to laugh because you feel very strict.
I think you have to laugh at yourself, especially if you're a consumer-facing brand. And also look at the likes of these brands that have done a faux pas in the market. Look at H&M. I mean, H&M has been taken to task because of a silly mistake of putting the wrong shirt on the wrong kid. And then you look at brands like someone like Black Label. Over the years, there were parodies of the logo that went to market, went to small claims court. The brand was saying, no, you can't do this. They lost the case. The individual won the case. And then brands get so cross about it and they want to protect their backs, but they don't kind of go, well, okay, if you've done something like this, how can we work together to actually better the brand? How can we actually laugh at ourselves about something silly that we have done? Nando's, for instance, they laugh at themselves all day, every day. It's what they're about. It's what they're known to do. Although when you look at Nando's in London or Nando's anywhere else around the world, it still plays on those cultural nuances, but they're a lot stricter around the world as here. Here, I think, because we haven't been able to do competitive advertising over the years, we've had to find these little nuances and ways to kind of walk that line, very thin line, and laugh at ourselves and actually do advertising or creativity quite differently.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Because you can't always be strict.
You can't.
The world's moving into a state that's less rigid, and you know, with all the, you could say, with all the media that's out there, it's almost you can't protect this image that's very rigid all the time. You have to almost go, okay, let's just loosen our ties a little bit, let's laugh a bit, and and then again taking that strictness into the more relaxed brands too, where there's those relaxed brands, they need more rigidity in them too.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at us as a culture, I mean, let's just take South Africa as one culture. We laugh at ourselves all the time. I mean, how do we deal with terrible news? We laugh at it. Jokes come out. I mean, within minutes, it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, whatever it may be, and someone's WhatsApping you a joke about something. You know, I mean, there's been terrible things happen over the years, but we laugh. We're a society that gets through hardships and times by laughing at ourselves. So why can't brands do the same thing? Brands need to. I mean, we need to be a bit more current.
Yeah, and relax a little bit. Yeah.
Definitely.
Would you say, how much should one kind of, I know it's always so hard because you don't want to put a value on things, but I'm just thinking, you've got a smaller agency that's sort of coming up, or company that an individual says, I'd really like to invest in Warrick services. I'd love to go and see their company, but I'm afraid to because maybe I don't have enough money for it. So I'll just continue to Google and do my thing and take this advice, when in actual fact I'm wanting to say, bridge that point because it may not be as expensive as what you think it would be. Could an individual or a company come to you and say, Warrick, this is how much we have. Like, what could we do with this amount of money to help us where we're sitting right now?
Yeah, no, the companies can definitely do that. I mean, look, it's a bit of a difficult one because, like you say, people are a bit worried that they're not going to be able to afford services from an agency. Whereas you'll find there's a lot of agencies that are popping up all over the show. There's a lot of freelancers that are doing that. So a lot of clients will go, well, I haven't got the budget to go to a big agency, but I can go to a freelancer or a one-man show, whatever it may be. And that's kind of where they tend to go. It also depends on where you want to take your brand. How big is your brand? I think people also are too scared to invest money into a brand because they don't really understand it as yet. Although brand's been going along for a couple of years, good parts of, like, say, 50 odd years really, where people start to understand where brands are going, but there's a lot of companies that don't understand the value of what a brand is. We were talking earlier that if you look at these big brands, someone like Samsung, and I took every single brand asset away from it, what do they stand for? They stand for nothing. Because at the end of the day, your brand is your business's most valuable asset. And I think clients need to start realizing that that's what your brand is about. So clients can approach us and say, all right, this is what we're about. This is our budget we've got to work with. This is where we want to go. This is what we think we need. And chances are half the time they don't really know what they need. So we'll take a brief from a client, and the brief may be huge that they want to go, but they only really need a small part of the brand. All the brief is tiny. And we'll answer the brief and say, right, this is us answering your brief. This is what you want to do, but you haven't thought about this, and this. And we can do a phased approach with clients as well. We don't just go to a client and say, this is our entire offering. This is how much it's going to cost you. And clients get a fright because they look at the fees, but they've got to realize that it becomes a journey and a partnership. So we have had clients over the years who have got a smaller budget that have worked with us. And we said, fine, we'll do it in a phased approach. This is what we'll do. We'll do a bit of an informed phase for you. Your brand strategy is your next phase. Creative is your next phase. Go to market plan. Because not everyone's got the budget or the money behind them to do this. So yeah, we definitely do work like that on certain clients. But then we do have a lot of your big sort of consultant firm, blue chip clients who, money's not really a problem. But we're also not there to kind of like take money for money's sake. We're there to do a job, we're there to build a brand, and we're there to do what's right for the client. And we will cost accordingly. Every brand's different, every brand's going to have a different solution at the end of the day. And
do you find that the services that you provide are just limited to South Africa, Southern Africa, or could an individual that is watching this or listening to the show right now and they're in America or in the UK contact you in order for you to consult with them? Does it bridge the borders,
definitely.
Or is it very siloed?
It definitely bridges the borders. Our reason for starting our agency was to focus on Africa or the continent in general, and to tell those African stories to the rest of the world, and to take brands from the continent and take them global. It's been, over the years, the majority of brands have come from outside in, and that's kind of how it's gone. But I think we're at a space now where Africa's about to do something really darn special, and you can feel it. You can see all these kind of brands bubbling around that are going to start going global, start moving around.
interesting. Thank you, Warrick. It's wonderful again to have you here with us.
Pleasure.
And really appreciate your time. I know the audience also appreciate it. And you'll be back again in a few episodes to talk more about brand, and we can see how we can take the questions that the listeners have for us and maybe answer some of those questions and go into that. So please send us your questions. Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you, because what you guys are experiencing or maybe thinking about brand, tell us what you're thinking about it. You know, we've got surveys that we're also running too, and we're going to refer you to those surveys because we want to hear your feedback. We want to get some statistics of how people are experiencing their, let's say, the brands that they're interacting with, what they perceive brand to be as well. So you can direct all your queries, you can email us, you can be contactable on hello@publishitgroup.com. Thank you so much for your support and your time. And at the end of the day, we're doing this for the audience. We're creating that mentorship program, that information platform. Until next time, thank you.